Steve Erceg might not be the typical fighter you'd see on a potential prospect, but he has only had 14 fights, and he is currently under 30 years old. While many of you know the name, you might not know just how dominant he was, especially with the insane jump in competition. But that's enough yapping, and let's get right into the nitty-gritty and break this puppy down. A young Erceg, Astro Boy himself, was born and raised in Myrie, West Australia. A nice place to live. It has great schools and it doesn't have a lot of crime, but it also isn't the safest city in Australia. Erceg is well educated and well spoken, with him attending Corpus Christi College. He was a huge WWE fan in his younger years, which got him inspired by Brock Lesnar becoming champion after being a star in the WWE. He challenged himself fighting in multiple Muay Thai events as well as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions, but his biggest achievement was getting the gold medal in the 65 kilogram division in Australian National Freestyle Wrestling. He is pretty tall for flyweight, standing at 5'8". He's just now entering his physical prime, being 29 years old. A young Steve Erceg made his professional debut in February of 2016, going up against Ryan Robertson. Stevie Boy would demolish Robertson by sinking in the guillotine choke and getting the tap. Steve would take some time off and focused on improving. He would eventually fight again in September of 2017, going up against Sean Gotchi. However, this wouldn't be a walk in the park. This is where old Stevie Boy would take his first loss. He didn't get finished, however, but he would lose by unanimous decision. Fun fact about Gotchi, he has a 9-1 record and is fighting on Dana White's Contender Series in October, so definitely pay attention when that time comes. But back to the video. Steve Erceg would fight about 6 months later, in July of 2018, fighting Seung Gook Choi, and he would jump right back into the win column, winning by unanimous decision. Steve would wait a long time to fight again, eventually fighting in March of 2019, facing off with Mark Familiari, and Steve would make short work of this fella by sinking in a nasty rear naked choke just 4 minutes into the first round. After steamrolling Mark and bringing his head back to the locker room, he would fight 2 months later in May, stepping up to fight Tim Moore, and once again, Erceg would show up and show out in spectacular fashion, dominating his opponent and eventually sinking in an arm triangle choke in the third round. Having his second head on the shelf, he would fight once more in 2019 in September, this time against Paul Loga, and he would starch this Paul guy with a nasty punch to the teeth in the first minute of the first round. After 3 finishes in a row and his loss far behind him, he would fight again in March of 2020. This time his victim would be Shannon Ross. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Shannon was in the UFC and took 3 losses in a row, all of them by knockout. However, Steve Erceg would not knock out Shannon because he would sink in reliable rear naked choke. Steve Erceg would fight in June of 2021, this time fighting Cody Haddon, another fighter fighting on Dana White's Contender Series in a week, August 20th. So again, pay attention to him. But Haddon would not be a challenge for the Astro Boy because he would dominate Haddon by unanimous decision. Erceg was looking like he would eventually fight in the UFC, but he still had to make more of a name for himself. So he would get a rematch with Paul Loga. However, it would be more of the same because Steve would sink in a guillotine choke in the first round and get the submission victory. Steve would take 2022 off and focus on his craft, slowly but surely improving his striking and his grappling. And in February of 2023, he would be the main event for the first time, when he would fight Sorichiro Hira, and yet again steamroll his opponent after sinking in a rear naked choke just 1 minute into the first round. This would catch the attention of the UFC, but they weren't sold yet. Steve would be scheduled to fight on the Dana White's Contender Series show, but due to visa issues, he wouldn't be able to attend. So they would have him fight on the Dern vs. Hill card, but yet again, he wouldn't be able to make it to America due to visa issues. But the UFC wouldn't let Astro Boy go without trying one more time. So in June of 2023, Steve Erceg would make his long-awaited UFC debut, fighting David Dvorak. On the prelims of the UFC 289 pay-per-view card, Dvorak would be no challenge for Erceg because he would dominate his opponent by unanimous decision. After winning the UFC debut, he would fight again in November of 2023, this time facing off with a pretty good fighter, Alessandro Costa. This would be a harder fight, but Erceg would win all 3 rounds, winning by unanimous decision. With the flyweight division being as shallow as it is, Erceg quickly got shot into the rankings, and he would face off with a fan favorite and veteran of the sport, Matt Schnell. And Erceg would absolutely obliterate Matt, knocking him out in the second round just 26 seconds into the round. Erceg was still unknown to the majority of the UFC fans, but he would get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The UFC would call Steve Erceg and offer him a title shot just 329 days into the promotion. His opponent would be Alexandre Pantoja. The public opinion was one-sided. People felt like Erceg was good, but he wasn't ready to challenge for the title quite yet. The odds were very much against him, but once fight day came and both warriors stepped into the octagon, Erceg would shock the fans and the media, beating Pantoja on the feet, and going into the 5th and final round, fans had it 2 rounds for Erceg and 2 rounds for Pantoja, but Erceg made a mistake that would cost him the fight. He shot for a takedown, and Pantoja would end the fight having won the 5th round. Erceg had lost, but he gained a huge fan base after showcasing that he was not a lamb for slaughter. He had much better striking, much better footwork, and he was tough as nails. And this brings us to this weekend. He is fighting Kai Kara France, a heavy-handed fighter who doesn't have great head movement or footwork, but he is tough. And if he lands clean, then your lights might get shut off. Erceg currently has 12 wins and 2 losses. He has 2 knockout wins, 6 submission wins, and 4 decision wins, while both of his losses have been by decision. Overall, I think Erceg will win by either submission in the 3rd or by decision. I think he has learned from his loss against Pantoja and will sharpen his fight IQ in the high-pressure moments. Technically, I think Erceg is much better on the feet than Kai. Who do you think is going to win this great flyweight matchup? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, as it is the only way to support the channel. And as always, have a great week and enjoy the fights on Saturday. Bye.